And we should just jump in there in a second.
Yeah.
Or now. Let's do it now.
Yeah.
Now.
Look at the graphic. Whoa. Look at that graphic.
Holy cow. I just realized you're on the left now, and I'm on the right, which is going to, I need to make a whole new graphic.
No way, really?
No, it's fine.
Can I just tell you, on my screen, you're above me.
Oh, keep it that way. Let's keep it.
Oh, that's just like you, Bernie bro.
I will crop it. Yeah, it's fair. So yeah, the red verse. Are we going into the red?
Yeah, let's do it. Who said it?
Okay.
Who said it?
Who said it? Red or blue? Let's show the graphic. Wow. Okay. Amazing.
Wow.
So here's the quote, and Twitter folks are going to know immediately who said this, but the rest of the world is a little sleepy, and they're not going to advertise this on MSNBC. Okay. Here's the quote. Doesn't the air just smell so much sweeter without our masks?
God, Orange Man is so gross. Fucking Cheeto in the White House. There is a literal Cheeto in the White House. Tell me, who was it? Was it Trump?
Was it Don Jr.? Was it Don Sr.? Was it
what's her face? MTG?
Neil Caputo? MTG?
Yeah. All those awful Republicans who won't wear masks.
It was the honorable doctor, but not an actual doctor. Well, sorry, I'm going to get hate mail here. You don't have my mail address, so no one's going to send me hate mail. I don't really care. Hate tweet me. It's Dr. Jill Biden.
What?
Medical
doctor Jill Biden?
Non-medical. What is she? She is a teacher. Oh, a master in ed.
She's a Bill Cosby doctor of education. They're the only PhDs who actually refer to themselves as doctor. I gotta tell you.
I'm sorry. I have a slight issue with people that insist people call them by doctor. Like at work, fine, but like if you're at a cocktail party and you say, "Call me doctor," I'm gonna make jokes.
Yeah. I mean, my father was a professor, brilliant classic scholar, PhD, of course, and he would never in his whole life ask somebody to call him doctor.
It's elitist. And I'm not saying Dr. Jill is saying that. She's not. So but people are on her behalf.
Yeah, it's just lame. Anyway, she's talking about, okay, can I just say something about the whole mask thing? It does feel better not to have my mask on. Like, I am fine with that. And the thing that really bothers me about all of this is the media narrative to frame this as, isn't it great that she's saying this? And now we're going to blame people who are getting COVID. And it's become this whole red state versus blue state thing. I hate wearing my mask. I wear it all the time when I'm indoors, but I don't like it. I wouldn't blame somebody for saying what she said if they hadn't taken away the mask mandate right when we shouldn't, because we all knew that these other variants were exploding. And it wouldn't bother me so much if I didn't see the way the media has been pushing this, like, oh, isn't it so nice that she's saying that? And yes, it's better. And those red state people who don't get vaccinated, they have what's coming to them. And if Trump had said it, which he did, and he's gross, we all know it, but we keep having to do this disclaimer, like people think that I'm a right winger because I call out Democrats, but the media would have just lambasted him for talking anti-mask.
Which they should. And that's the whole point, is that it's not like when we jump in and say Dr. Jill Biden. Every time I want to say Jill, I jump into Jill Stein too. It's a thing.
Oh, please no. That's so, yeah, I know.
It's not, but the point is the media should be going after her for these statements too. They should be saying the same thing. They should be challenging the current administration. And they're still so much stuck on attacking the Trump administration. Like the news every night is attacking the Trump. And by all means, pursue all the avenues against, you want to litigate Trump. I'm all for pursuing everything that happened on January 6th, the Capitol resurrection riots, whatever.
The 40 years before, which he should have been prosecuted on a million things for 4 decades.
But how do you not hold the current administration to account? You need to call them out on this. Like, the trajectory for getting people vaccinated, which is one of the things Biden gets the most credit for. He got all these people vaccinated. It's the exact trajectory that Trump was on. As terrible as Trump was and as slow as he was, the arc was to get people just as vaccinated as they are.
I mean, honestly,
Sorry,
Project Warp Speed, or whatever it was called, Project Warp Speed, yeah. He bought all these vaccinations. I mean, he's an asshole. He told people they didn't need it, not to wear masks. He's awful. Yeah. But he actually did procure these vaccinations that we have right now.
Right. And I mean, the thing he did that was terrible was he provided a bad example. He provided an example for people to say, ignore science and all that. And so Biden didn't do that. Biden, well, he did somewhat in the primaries because he tried to get people to come out and vote for him when the science said you should not be coming out to vote. But that's another issue.
And yet, but it's not, right? Like, nobody calls him out for that in the news, right? It's like a memory hole.
Well, they couldn't have, because had they, then maybe you would have had some weird stop the primaries thing, or pause the primary, and who knows, because that's a mess. They had things going their way. They weren't going to stop that.
Right.
But I mean, the real ignore science stuff came from Biden when they started pushing like schools need to open. Okay. So, overnight, boom, Biden is the president. So COVID is fine. Schools need to open. Suddenly 3 feet is fine for kids in schools because we can't actually accommodate 5 feet.
Right.
And, they're right when they say, okay, the science says 3 feet and 5 feet are no different for kids in schools. And that's only because 5 feet was never safe. So 3 feet is just as unsafe as 5 feet.
Exactly. Yeah. And the thing that we need to do, there's all the talk about, defund the police and how that's hurting the Democrats, which is such bullshit, as we know. But like, we've defunded schools so much that they don't have the ventilation. They don't have the ability to accommodate the safety precautions that we need. And if we don't get kids back in school, we can't get parents back to work. And so it's just like this whole snowball effect of opening up the economy and we're back to normal. And I listen to In the Bubble every once in a while when I want to stab my ears out and make them bleed, which is
what is In the Bubble?
In the Bubble. It's Andy Slavitt, who was one in the health bureau or whatever under Obama, then came back on under Biden. And when COVID started, he was alarmed, as we all were, and talked about that really openly. And just today, first of all, he was very much against the idea that this could have been a lab leak because Trump said it. So that was he was one of the people who pushed back against that possibility, which is now gaining some acceptance or at least some scrutiny, right? But on today's show, I could only listen to the first 20 minutes. They were talking about let's take a pause with this Delta variant, and not get too upset. When we hear about what's happening in Israel and how they're the most vaccinated country, and now they're having to go back under a lockdown and reinstate the mask mandate because as vaccinated as they are, people are now getting infected with COVID. Let's just take a pause. Everybody still go shopping. Let's get people back to school. There was somebody, I think up in Sacramento or San Francisco, some big doctor, epidemiologist, who was profiled today and trending on Twitter because she thinks that we definitely should not overstate the concern about the Delta variant, and it might harm getting kids back to school. And we don't, we haven't done studies on how that's going to hurt kids if they don't get to go back to school. So that's that's the push.
I shared a tweet, I think yesterday, but it was by another doctor or somebody, I don't know. But basically the argument was that if you wanted to create a scenario where you have a vaccine resistant virus, you lock down, you do exactly what we've done.
Right.
So you've got half the population out there vaccinated. 47% of America is vaccinated right now. And then you have everybody living like none of this matters. So, right. So you've got something out there in the world and people are face to face, living their lives completely normal. And of course, what's going to eventually infect us all is something that is a variant that people vaccinated can't resist. So,
right. It's like taking half your course of antibiotics, right? It's like just enough to make yourself feel better, but it allows the bacteria to sort of like figure it out and grow.
Yeah, because you've got 53% of the people out living their lives are not vaccinated.
Right.
And they're being told right now to just business as usual.
Yep.
So half the country is just acting like nothing matters. So eventually this scenario we're creating is going to come up. There will be a variant that will fuck us all. And we just know that right now. And it doesn't matter to this.
Make your money fast. It's like the burning ocean. I mean, that really is what it is. It's just like,
it's inevitable.
Yeah.
So the Delta variant, for anyone who doesn't know it, it's super easy to catch. It's the most spreadable of them all. It's like, you just, somebody said you walk by a person with it and you get it. That might be extreme. Who knows?
No, they've actually done contact tracing and gene sequencing or whatever. And they figured out like the viral load is so concentrated and it transmits so quickly that you truly can just walk past a person.
Yeah. So among that, what they don't want people talking about is a variant of that, of a Delta something else with an asterisk. I don't know. Some scientists complete the sentence, but is more deadly than anything yet. So you've got the combination of the two. One is it's more contagious and more deadly. Right. Now, currently, people vaccinated are basically protected from it. We might get sick, we might whatever, but that's the whole point of getting vaccinated. Everyone go get vaccinated. But we've got this virus now that's highly contagious. We should be just as locked down if half the world, in our world, half our country is,
or at least like still like there was no reason to take away the indoor mask mandate, right? Because it's like everything that we deal with this is exponential. It's not just a one-on-one thing, right? So kids 12 and under aren't vaccinated. There are immunocompromised people not vaccinated. Then there are people who just have skepticism or whatever, not vaccinated. Now we're taking away masks. There are a lot of essential workers who we don't pay essential salaries to, but okay, fine, sacrifices to the holy dollar, who have to be there. They have children. People who go shopping have children. I mean, there are a lot of holes in the shields of protection that we're just amplifying by not wearing masks and pretending that we should all just go back to normal, and that, if you catch it, that's your fault because you voted for Trump. I mean, that's the messaging at this point. Anybody who gets COVID right now is being blamed for it and said, you must be a Republican.
Yeah, and they're pushing the narratives that were unacceptable under Trump. Like, while Trump was president, it was unacceptable to say to people not to wear a mask in public spaces. To say, I mean, just that Jill Biden said, doesn't the air just smell so much sweeter without our masks? Like, out of microphone. Like, that's a planned statement. And why do you plan a statement like that? You plan that to encourage people to live their lives normally. Right. Which you should be doing the opposite. You should be saying, it's great if you're vaccinated. You should at least encourage, if you're vaccinated, to be a little less cautious in certain scenarios. Right. And if more of you get this, but this like, don't wear a mask thing is, I mean, it's atrocious. It's anti-science.
It's really irresponsible. And especially, I mean, I get it. Like, what they're trying to do is show how much sweeter life would be if you're vaccinated. And of course, if we were 100% vaccinated, that would be amazing. But the reason a lot of people aren't vaccinated, yes, is because Trump is an asshole and Republicans have pushed this lie that vaccinations don't help, or that, this is just like the flu or whatever it is.
It's the same climate change nonsense. They just push this whole thing to get votes.
Even though he got vaccinated right away and got like the best care that there was when he was close to death. But I just lost my train of thought because I caught a look at myself in the thing, and I should never do that after 2 glasses of wine. I need to like hide. What they're trying to do, and this is, I put out a tweet today because I'm so mad that they're making this a red state versus blue state thing. And yes, of course they're morons, but like, do we have to? I'm never going to gloat over somebody's suffering. And a lot of the people who are Trump supporters or who don't believe in these vaccinations, there's a reason that they're feeling what they're feeling. And until we deal with the root causes of that, you cannot have a president who says, believe science, but he would veto Medicare for all, and then just passes a bill that gives hundreds of millions of dollars to the healthcare lobby industry, right? Like,
right.
That's not believe science. So there's a reason for the skepticism. There's a reason that people don't feel like their government has their best interest at heart. And it's not just because of Republicans. And until we really come to that, until we fix that, to blame some just, person.
Yeah. For me, a big part of that is the media. I mean, you look at the media and they're supposed to be our third estate that people trust to fourth. God damn.
Sorry. It's like real-time correction.
Fourth.
Sorry, I'm doing it.
No, that's all right. I'm going to bleep. I'm in editing, I'm going to make you pay for that. All right.
Give me another chin or neck.
It's going to be graphics. I don't know. We'll figure something out. But,
do it,
but yeah, the fourth estate is supposed to protect us from that. So the fact that people don't trust our media at large leaves us in this situation. And when you turn on the media, if you're on the right and you see, oh, Biden's supposed to be the science guy, and say you're a reasonable Republican who believes in science, you're like, he's pushing the same nonsense Trump was, and CNN is not, they're not covering this, or they're fluffing him up, know, and then Colbert, which we're going to get to, but nice. All these people are, do you like the pivot?
Yeah. It's good. I just got it. That's great.
But they, when you see this whole full court press against Republicans and specifically Trump, the media and guys like Colbert, and they're everything they say about Trump is right. It's right. It's all right. Right. But what they don't do is show you the same shit happening on the Democratic side. Exactly. And it's happening at a lesser degree, admittedly. And it's a different tone. It's more lying than anything.
Because they say believe science and trust the experts, but then they still work against the science and the experts.
Right. So you're not seeing their actual, they don't call out that, okay, they made these great quotes about believing in science, but let's show where they're not, it's an easy thing to show where they're not believing in science.
Identical to Trump's actions. Honestly, they prop up the fossil fuel.
Joe Biden signing all the fracking permits the minute he comes into office, when his whole thing was in the first 100 days, he's going to do all this stuff. It's just such bullshit. And it's so easy to point out. Right. And Republicans are uber aware of that stuff. They're not like, we're not in a world as Democrats where we're tuned into that stuff, but Republicans are tuned into, like, he said this first 100 days, he's going to do this stuff. And he didn't do any of it. It's all bullshit. We're going to run on that. We're going to smear him. We're going to attack Democrats because he didn't do these things.
Yeah, I think we're in for a real, not we, because I don't care anymore. It's not my party, but Democrats are in for a world of hurt. They really are insulated. Although I was about to say they're insulated by watching MSNBC and CNN and all the legacy media, but then I see the statistics and it looks like Jake Tapper lost 70% of his audience. All of MSNBC is down by at least 50%. Like, I think people are starting to wean themselves off of the propaganda slowly. Slowly.
I mean, you think it has to set in on some level with a lot of these people, because Trump bad has been the whole mantra forever. Trump bad, Russia, whatever. But like, we're in a pandemic. Like, if you're focused on January 6th and the Capitol riots, I get once in a while that we should do that, and we should, follow that story. I'm not ever advocating not to make that a story, but like, it's a pandemic. Like focus on the people dying from not having health care. Okay,
and getting evicted and not making a wage to live. I mean, yeah. So
we wanted to show some of the stats, which you pulled up, and I appreciate that, from New York Times.
Are you about to share a graphic right now? Tell
I'm going to
me.
pretend to share one
No, I'm
because
excited.
I'm
I
not
feel
looking
like
at it, but
we're so high tech.
I pulled some numbers from one of the graphics you shared,
Okay,
and
okay.
then I will share some other ones
Okay.
afterwards.
Let me
But
know what they are.
I only know one graphic.
Okay.
But the graphic that I had the freeze frame of
Yeah.
was the national COVID situation right now.
Right.
So right now we have in the U.S. An average of 12,914 COVID cases a day.
Yeah.
Every day, 16,991 people are hospitalized from COVID. Every day, 249 and a half people die. Sorry, half person. And 47% of people in the US are vaccinated. So this is not something gone away. Now, granted, okay, deaths 250, you can minimize that number.
Right.
But the unwritten story right now is how many people have long COVID.
Exactly. And don't have health care, right? They don't have health care.
So that's where all this comes into play, is that and so okay, let's talk about this story some more before we get into the other stuff.
Yeah.
But the stats. But yeah, they don't have health care, and that's the problem. All these people are underinsured and uninsured, and for a global pandemic to not have our media focused on
it's
that our country doesn't have health care. Like, is there anything else that can point out how clearly they're not on our side? As if they're on the people's side in this country, they would want to point to the stories, to point to the evidence, to point to what Biden said before to now, and the difference, and how we should get, like, how do we get people covered? Like, that's what you would think the news wants. How do we get our citizens out of?
That's a story that the richest nation in the world, I think we rank 37th for our healthcare system. It's disgusting. And
terrible.
I will say also, because the New York Times COVID tracker, and yes, I subscribe to the New York Times, but it's interactive, right? So like you can go to every county in the country and see where people are dying, where people are infected, where people have been vaccinated, how many cases. Today, and I'm going to read this, today there were 23,549 new cases of COVID reported. Okay. So not that 7-day average that you just read, which that's what they highlight. They highlight the 7-day average, but the actual cases, and it was yesterday on the 6th, 23,549 new cases. There were 24,000 new cases last June 2020, when we were all locked down.
We're already getting to the same place we were when we were demanding a lockdown under Trump.
Yep. But now,
and you're right. So the first graphic that they show you on the New York Times is that the daily cases are 12,000. But you just brought up that the 26,000 yesterday or today.
Yeah, 23,549.
23. God damn it.
I just don't want anybody to.
This is worse than the third, fourth estate correction, which was a sin.
I'm ready for that fake left Twitter to call us out on our red-brown alliance because we're fudging numbers or some bullshit.
Well, I'm gonna have a Nazi on soon. So
all the boogie boy. What, I don't even know who they are, but yeah. But yeah. So yes, exactly. Continue.
Okay, so this brings up a study that we were looking at, an article we caught from Common Dreams, which is a very progressive independent media news network. Phenomenal. It's an article from a few months ago, but 40% of COVID infections in the US, they found a study we'll talk about in a minute, but were due to uninsurance, people not having insurance. So 40% of the people in this country who got COVID, this study attributed to them not having insurance. 33%, so 1 out of 3 people that died in this country was due to not having insurance.
And that is held up by both parties. So anybody only blaming Trump, who yes, is disgusting, but only blaming Trump, you're missing so much of the picture. So many people, and you know what? There are a lot of people who don't go to get their COVID vaccination because they're scared they're going to be charged. They don't know. right? People have signed death certificates for their spouses or people in their family and gotten bills from COVID, gotten like tens of thousands of dollars of bills, even though you weren't supposed to get charged at all. We have a really horrific system that terrifies people and penalizes poor people.
Well, and take away the fear and the long COVID effects and all of it from this equation. And just look at the fact that we have a health system that's tied to employment. So COVID hit, and the shutdown itself caused, rationally, businesses reacted how they should. I mean, they didn't want to, but they had to shut down these businesses. So these people laid off employees. And we have a system where your whole healthcare system is tied to employment. I mean, this is not how the rest of the world works.
No.
And as an American, people think this is how it works. You go to get a job and then you get your healthcare.
Find a better job. Get a better job then.
But we've been duped into this belief that this is the way things should be. And most countries don't work like that. And most countries with money have universal healthcare coverage. We're just so propagandized that this is normal and okay. Like anytime we get remotely close to this kind of thing, the media does this whole bullshit where they attack Medicare for all, they undermine everything. They have healthcare workers, healthcare.
And then they profile stories about some 11-year-old who sells lemonade to help his mother's cancer bills or something. And that's like
isn't that great?
Story. Yeah.
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 No, that has been really gross. And the other thing, when you're talking about like trust science, the CDC stopped tracing COVID in vaccinated patients. So how do you scientifically examine a virus and the way it spreads when you are no longer doing any kind of tracing in people who are vaccinated? And what happens when they get infected? How does it affect them? How do they spread it, right? Like, I mean, this is anecdotal, but a friend of ours, he's vaccinated. His 2 older children are vaccinated. His 9-year-old was not able to be vaccinated. She got COVID at a play date, came home, and all 3 of the and she got COVID. All 3 of the vaccinated people at home have COVID. Now, if it's not like serious enough for them to go to the hospital, they're not getting. There's no data being done on people like that, right? So like, where does the science and the data break down when we don't know how it actually affects people who are vaccinated? If the goal is only to punish or to sort of highlight, oh, this is what happens if you're not vaccinated, and then that's where all of your focus is, great. Yes, get vaccinated. I think everyone should be vaccinated. I was vaccinated the second I could be, and so were everybody in my family. But like, if the CDC is no longer testing people who have mild symptoms because they're vaccinated, then there's a whole chain of contagion that is not being tracked.
Right. And so who do you trust in all this stuff? That's the problem that underlies all of it, is that the CDC used to be the most trustable organization. And then Trump undermined that, but then this didn't snap back under Biden. And let's say you hypothetically trust the CDC, which is advocating ahead of science to have us all back to work. I mean, I think most people agree that they're pushing it. The US isn't even following the CDC recommendations on this. The rest of the world is following a little more of the CDC recommendations, but the US has just said, we don't even care about the CDC recommendations on some stuff. So,
okay, Pat, I'm going to do it to you again. The WHO.
Yes. The WHO. Motherfucker. I feel like this whole show is a trap.
It is. I'm trapping you. I'm having another glass of wine because I feel like I'm obviously way too on top of things.
Okay, wait a minute. We were good on the CDC, but then I pivoted to WHO.
Yeah.
And because you're informed that I meant the World Health Organization.
I try to read a little. But no, the CDC is actually going against the WHO because
yes, that's what I meant to say.
I know it's
so much.
I know that's what you meant to say because we're like mind melding. And I just wanted to get you back on track a little bit. I'm focusing on my poor dog who has cancer, who just had her leg amputated. She's right here. So if you see me like,
oh my God,
over, I know
she needs to be on camera at some point.
I know. If she only could
for
like
posterity
hobble over here. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this has all been really distressing, I think, for the belief science crowd, which I am one of the belief science crowd. Like, I want to believe science. I am pro-vax, I'm pro-medicine, I'm pro all of that, but I am disgusted by what's happening right now.
Yeah.
There's nothing more to say, right?
I got nothing.
All right, we're gonna move on.
You're so right. It's shocking.
That's what I love to hear. I almost wanted to just end on that note.